Bypass surgery was a great advance in treating the worst heart patients. 1969, the Cleveland Clinic, very commonly performed operation. Numbers knocked down a bit when we got balloon angioplasty in the late 70s and stents in the early 1990s, better stents in the early 2000s. But there's still a lot of bypass. So, bypass cures nothing in terms of the pathophysiology. You have a blocked artery, you just make a detour so the blood has a new way to get to the heart muscle. That's a great thing, but why did it get blocked in the first place? Diet, stress, lifestyle, smoking, poor nutrition. The surgery doesn't correct any of that. And it's very rare that a patient really gets the whole story, because if anybody needs lifestyle enema more than anybody, it's somebody who's had enough blockage. When I say lifestyle enema, I just mean really lifestyle redo. We should do a TV show called Lifestyle Redo for the heart patients, and make it fast-paced like some of the fashion redos. It's the bypass patient needs that kind of approach. And they may get lucky to have their doctor refer them to a cardiac rehabilitation program where they'll exercise, and they may hear some things about the Mediterranean diet and processed food and eating well, but they probably won't. I'll give a shout out. There's two special kinds of cardiac rehabilitation programs. You've had bypass surgery, or maybe 6 weeks out you're recovering. There's one called the Ornish Intensive Cardiac Rehab Program, or NISH, and one called the Pritikin Intensive Cardiac Rehab Program. They're covered by insurance. They go much more in depth about reversing disease for the future, because people who have bypass, and who do we know probably most famous would be somebody like Bill Clinton, has his bypass surgery in 2004. 2007, he's back in an emergency room with chest pain. One of his bypasses had shut down. Very common that the bypasses last for a very short amount of time. It's a Band-Aid. And he needed a stent 3 years after his bypass to unclog an artery that used to be bypassed. And then he sort of got the religion. He finally found out that bypass is a very temporary Band-Aid if you don't learn how to change your diet. So it's reported that 20 of 21 meals a week that President Clinton eats are plant-based, low oil, like Dr. Ornish, Dr. Esselstyn would advise him. And 1 meal a week he may eat a piece of fish because somebody told him fish was necessary in his diet. But I give him pretty good grades for 20 of 21. Yeah, we not only put poor food choices, poor fuel into our body, but we now live in an environment where unfortunately it's challenging from externally. There's actually a word for this called the exposome, what we're exposed to. There's something called your genome. Now there's some in metabolome. Now there's something called your exposome. The analogy I would think is you've got a really great car, and you do put premium gas in this great car, like it says on the gas tank. You put really great food in your body. You put really whole food and nutritious, maybe organic foods. But you're driving down roads that are poorly paved and potholes. You still end up potentially with a broken, form of transportation, and our body is that form of transportation. So pollution has come on the scene. Sadly, it's come on the environment, but it's come on the scene in so many medical studies. 4 million people a year worldwide die of dirty air exposure. Most of that are poorer countries where they're cooking inside their house, and the house becomes nothing but a toxic brew of sooty air from cooking. So that's a third world problem that will slowly resolve with better technologies. We just got to get all those people at George Foreman Grill and an electrical outlet, and at least we'll take care of the smoke problem. That's a shout out to George. I don't have any interest in his product, but nonetheless, it's a great way to grow vegetables indoors. But we're also talking about literally what factories are doing, what cars are doing. Beijing gets all the attention because the air quality is so horrible there. It's measured in parts per million, I think. And during the 2008 Olympics, they knew how bad the air quality was. They shut the factories off about 4 weeks before the Olympics, shut them back on a couple weeks after. During those 6 or 8 weeks, they actually measured major improvements in health by shutting down the factories and just slightly improving the quality of the air in Beijing. Actually, all kinds of parameters of respiratory disease and heart disease improved. And we're seeing that all over, that living closer to a highway, actually exercising close to a highway, all can increase your risk of heart attack, increase your risk of various heart arrhythmias. So it's very central in cardiology research. It's just not talked about much. And what do? You know, you want to open your house and get good breezes now and then. I have air filters in my house and office that are running all the time. You want to take your shoes off and not necessarily bring in every form of dirt and all, although that's a different form of just making your house air a little dirtier. You know, we don't want to live a completely sterile life. We like the fact that we have a diverse culture of bacteria in our body, but air quality is key, and be aware of that. I mean, big trucks go by, hold your breath if you can until you're somewhere where it's a little bit cleaner. And living in a dense urban center is not good for your health. You know, when we talk about the exposome, or things that you're exposed to that may affect your health, it's not just a truck going down the street while you're jogging and you have the gift of breathing in their diesel fumes. We've learned that there's many home products. There's a class of chemicals called phthalates. Nobody can spell them. If you know how to spell them, raise your hand right now, but it's P-H-T-H-A-L-A-T-E-S. I've been studying it. And phthalates have been used in perfumes, in air fresheners, in those plug-in air fresheners, in shampoos to give things fragrance and smells. Turns out they're amongst a class called EDCs, endocrine disrupting chemicals. Those chemicals get through your skin, get inhaled, they get inside your body. If we do urine tests, almost all of us will have demonstrable levels, even children, of endocrine disrupting chemicals, of which phthalates are a big class. And they affect your thyroid function, they affect your fertility, they affect perhaps other glandular functions. So one of the theories is that the rise in obesity is in part due to 500-600 calories a day more than we were eating 35 years ago. But it's also the fact that our endocrine system is being bombarded by this, and being aware and being careful about you know, perfumes and air fresheners and plastics and other things that are potentially rich in phthalates. So the good news is there are some major manufacturers or retailers, Target and Walmart, that have announced a list of like 500 chemicals that by some date, I think it's 2018, they will not be buying products from manufacturers that have these, and they will be moving out of the market because of market forces like that. That is one of the brightest spots I've heard. In fact, another one called triclosan, another endocrine disrupting chemical separate from phthalates, FDA just announced they have to be removed from hand soaps, antibacterial soaps, very quickly, because not only do they not work, they can disrupt your endocrine system. So another victory that a few years ago you'd say this is soft, kind of foo-foo, tree-hugging medicine, and now it's the FDA endorsing. Yeah, plastics are again a source of chemicals that might be called your exposome, things you're exposed to that we never really thought much. You go back to the movie The Graduate, I think that was in the late 60s, and when Dustin Hoffman's getting advice on his career, the older man says, you know, your future is plastics. I think his name was Ben in the movie, if I remember. Because that's when so much excitement about being able to replace ceramics and stainless and other things with plastics. And you know, now we fast forward 45, 46 years, and plastic bottles choking off the oceans and creating huge landfills. But they're also harming our health directly, immediately, not just the terrible impact on the environment. So plastics are often rich in bisphenol A, BPA, and there's another one called bisphenol S, BPS, that is not as well known, but equally toxic or more toxic. And the concern, again, endocrine disrupting chemicals. If you take any family in the United States and check urine and measure bisphenol A, BPA, 90+% of Americans will have measurable and potentially high levels of these chemicals from drinking in plastic, coffee in plastic, taking your lunch to work in plastic, microwaving in plastic, and other sources, thermal receipts. Would you like the receipt for that cup of coffee? You grab it, you touch it, those have bisphenol A. It's recently been shown that if you're buying fast food and that burger's wrapped in that plastic wrap with the Ronald McDonald or Wendy's logo on it, that's rich in these chemicals, and it gets in the food or on your hands, but more so in the food. So there's so many sources of these endocrine disrupting chemicals from plastics, and being aware of that, and not drinking in plastic cups, and not, there's cans, the lining of cans is very often BPA. And you can find some manufacturers that will label it BPA free. You wonder about that other one, BPS. That isn't commonly, I've never seen that labeled on a can, BPA and BPS free. It would be nice to know that. But that's why you might see soups now that are in more cardboard kind of containers as opposed to metal cans, because I think we're okay with that kind of packaging. But being aware of this environment, going to a site called Environmental Working Group, ewg.org, kind of not-for-profit, not tied to industry reviewer that might give you some good insight about products you can buy that are free of these chemicals. Yeah, your skin absorbs readily, so there's a statistic that if you put some kind of lotion on your skin, within 25 to 30 seconds, it's inside your body and in your bloodstream and throughout. So it turns out many antibacterial soaps, hand lotions, perfumes, hair products, lipsticks are placed on the skin and then they're inside the body. Well, there's a multitude of contaminants. Many products are being made overseas in China, and there's heavy metal contamination. You're putting on lipstick and there's lead and mercury, and then it's in your body, very toxic substances to the body. Same thing with lotions and all. So I urge people, there's again a website called ewg.org, Environmental Working Group, ewg.org. It's a great resource to see if the products you buy may be contaminated with some of these endocrine disrupting chemicals and alternatives. So I've changed my shaving cream, I've changed my deodorant, I've changed my toothpaste, I've changed my facial lotion, I've changed my hair gels and all, because I'm looking on the label where it says parabens free or BPA free or phthalate free. I like when it says not tested on animals for other reasons. But you got to be very careful because this rise in obesity, and with obesity comes blood sugar and cholesterol and blood pressure and heart disease and cancer and dementia risk. Some of that is the chemical environment that we live in. Dry cleaning is oddly and strangely and not very spoken of risk to your health. There's a book by a colleague of mine, Dr. Brian Clements, called Killer Clothes. It covers both flame retardants that may be in children's pajamas or bedding that can get inside the body and have toxic effects. But the way the dry cleaning is done in most places involves a chemical called PERC, P-E-R-C, and it's inundated through the fabric of whatever is dry cleaned. And it has a process called off-gassing, so that it's actually, you no longer have 100% organic cotton shirt. You have 100% organic cotton shirt loaded with a chemical called PERC. And it may take a few days for that to free itself from the material of the shirt or the dress or the jacket. So one alternative is to look for a cleaner, a green cleaner that indicates they use kind of organic solvents that are not riddled with these chemicals like PERC. And the other is to leave your dry cleaning actually in the garage or in some distant place. You really don't want it in your house. Take the plastic bag off and give it 2-3 days to off gas. It'll literally, you won't be able to see it, but some of these organic solvents that can be dangerous to your health and can document cases of affecting children's health and rashes and appetite and nausea and headache problems, actually to let that material out of the dry cleaning before it affects you. And some people have to go to all organic cotton clothing and never dry clean to really overcome some of that health impact. The cell phones fall in this larger topic of electromagnetic radiation or electromagnetic frequencies. You know, we live in a Wi-Fi world and we can't see them, but there's all kinds of radiation exposures that are, you know, in every place we're at, work, hospital, even public enjoyment places where if you can connect to Wi-Fi, and in our houses, you know, 24/7, we're exposed to an electronic source we weren't exposed to before. And although it's still a developing field of science, there's actually been some data that there are some people that are genetically more sensitive to EMF, electromagnetic frequencies, than others. There are some people that feel poorly based on that. And cell phones are a strong source. If you were to actually read the small print that you sign or you agree to when you accept the operating system of your cell phone, there will be wording that says things like don't have it within a couple inches of your head, and don't have it near children, don't have it near pregnant mothers. Of course, we never actually read these pages and pages of small print that comes with the phone, but it's actually in there to protect the company. Although it's not proven science, it is of concern. So what are the options? I mean, people that are sensitive, or if you're just concerned, some people will shut the Wi-Fi off at night. You're probably not using your phone a lot at night. Turn it off at 8 o'clock, turn it back on at 7 in the morning. At least you give the whole family a break from Wi-Fi. Now, it doesn't always work so well with everything being Bluetooth now, and even home alarms and all, so it may not be an option, it's a thought. I try very hard not to have a cell phone by my brain. There's certainly a link of concern to brain cancer. Whether it's proven or not, we can argue back and forth. So whether, and I don't like everybody now in the gym having Bluetooth technology rather than earpieces and such, because you're putting EMF so close to the back of your brain and an area by your back of your ear that's sensitive to radiation. So I would encourage people to use the speaker, hold the phone a little further away, because the fall off of radiation is quite a lot. Even just a couple inches away from your head is a tremendous drop in the amount of exposure to your brain. I hope there's, technology improves. For example, I have an infrared sauna at home, and it's rated to be, essentially non-existent EMF exposure, which is a concern with some saunas. And I hope we get to cell phone technology. Maybe that's possible, maybe it's not, that will have that same built-in safety feature. This whole issue of electronic exposure to the human body and what it might be doing to our health, and smart meters have become a topic of concern rather than the old-fashioned meter checker that just had an analog system. Now they're digital, now they're a source of EMF, and there are some people who have tried to fight City Hall and resist the smart meter. Again, it kind of has put the meter reader out of business, but is it affecting our health? We have a real high-profile case of that in suburban Detroit that a friend of mine is fighting City Hall. It's been ugly. And then living near power lines, those big, tall power lines, has been a question in terms of some fertility issues and growth issues and all. And I think it's a real issue. Our bodies are electrical. Every heart cell, every heartbeat, 100,000 times a day. 6 times, yeah, day. Billions and billions of times. I'm making sure it's not 100,000 times an hour. It's all electrical. Every brain cell, it's all electrical. Sodium, potassium, magnesium, channels opening and closing. And we're talking about resources that are that we're exposed to that can affect the electrical system of the bodies. And is that aging us? Is that promoting diseases, particularly cancer? So you can run, you can't hide from Wi-Fi. You can run, you can't hide from power lines. But you can make some decisions in terms of some protective measures, and not choosing to live under power lines if you have a choice, renting an apartment that's in another location. So a lot of things to improve your exposome, your environment. The big elephant in the room of a lot of visits I have with patients, they have the information. They know they have a pattern of eating they should follow. They know they have a gym membership. They paid for it. They know that they shouldn't smoke. They know that they should get up and move more at work rather than sit. A lot of it is stress. In fact, some people estimate that 3/4 of all visits to the doctor, whether it's belly pain, back pain, headache, fatigue, rash, somehow stress is the root cause. Financial stress, kid stress, elderly parent stress, work stress, job stress, health issues and concerns, marital, I'm not sure if I said marital, stress. And when we're stressed, we may sleep poorly, we may grab a donut, not an apple, we may skip the gym, and just stress itself may raise the cortisol, may raise adrenaline, rise our blood pressure, rise our blood sugar, gain some weight, affect our normal adrenal cycle. So stress has to be recognized, and again, sort of like exposure to EMF, you're not going to hide from stress or hide from EMF, but you can learn management skills and reduction skills. I mean, realize at certain family gatherings and work gatherings, it's going to be stressful. And walking into that room, I teach something called 4-7-8 breathing. It's about a 75-second little tool of breathing in through your nose for 4 seconds, holding it for 7 seconds, breathing out through your mouth for 8 seconds. 4-7-8, doing that 4 times, takes about 75 seconds. When people are about to walk on the stage, give a talk, about to walk into their boss's office to have a review, about to talk to a spouse about some issue or children, 4-7-8 breathing is a simple tool. I like herbs for stress. There's an herb called theanine from green tea, or ashwagandha from a plant originally from India, and they can give people in a non-addictive, safe way a little better cortisol kind of response and a little better feeling of well-being. A good night's sleep is probably one of the best things for stress. You know, you can't get 7 hours sleep if you're in bed for 5 hours unless you're sleeping at the wheel. So placing a priority on stress is one of the best anti-aging stress management. Healthy diet for stress. Good GI health by eating fermented foods and whole foods and avoiding processed foods with rich in antibiotics, chemicals, hormones, and additives. So those are all the keys. So, you know, manage stress, recognize stress, learn about how to deal with stress, and you can improve the quality of life and hopefully the quantity.